say I have two books here which are available, and I'm happy to sign them if anybody's interested. And I'm going to read you several poems from these two books. Because my background actually is in fine arts and photography, you'll see a lot of visual elements that are incorporated in my work. And in some cases, like the first poem I'm going to read you, I was actually out taking photographs in Homedale Park. And when I got home and checked them on the computer, then I kept going, and then I wrote this poem. It's called Weeping Cherries. In crisp spring air, weeping cherry trees cascade pink onto a green lake. A wind skims surface, pleating landscape into squares of jeweled mosaic, into reflective magic. Weighted with blossoms, black branches bow to ground, surrendering with humility and grace. On a gray bench, embraced by swaying boughs, I sit, longing to learn the lessons of these trees, to be an errant petal light as flute music, or a trout breaking the skin of water, flippant with joy. I listen as a far-off whippoorwill calls, and wish I were a bird so that I might answer. Well, there are quite a few lyric poems and natural poems in this. This was one I wrote about my father, who was a builder. It's called Houses. My father built his first house, a Cape-style cottage, for his mother Mary and the last 3 children of her brood of 8. For John, his oldest brother, my father designed a split-level home with a big bay window that looked down a hill, as if John reigned as king of the neighborhood. When I was 5, we moved into a house he constructed on a cliff above the sea, with a studio and skylights for my mother, a bar with spinning red stools for him, and a big rec room for me. For more than 200 families, my father built huge houses, some with maids' quarters and 3-car garages, on new roads wending through forests and marshes, ending by rivers in cul-de-sacs. In the nursing home, during crafts, my father sat in a wheelchair and built a balsa birdhouse. With arthritic hands, he cut and glued, then painted bright red, a proud gift he gave me, his last house. This one, I don't know if there are any people that are close to my age, but you can still hear these trains coming out of Earl at night sometimes with the missiles and all the supplies and munitions. So I wrote this poem called Night Trains. Far off, a distant train rattles against the horizon, a fast, dark train, carrying missiles to the ships that lie in wait at dock. Their massive gray hulks sandwiching waves against the creaking bulkheads. Through the night silence, the railroad cars shudder along steel tracks, shaking the sleeping deer in their laurel beds, reminding some of the days when Nike missiles raised furious white fingers from Sandy Hook's underground silos, from secret sites on an unsuspecting mainland. 50 years of conflict and skirmish, a Cold War feared then, a hot war fought now. 50 years of running trains through hushed valleys, low whistles, hissing useless warnings. Now this one I think everybody can probably identify with to a certain degree. I certainly, I had fun with this one. This is called Guilt. The bird feeders stand empty or clogged with the detritus of millet and thistle turned sour. I am too cheap to throw out the seed, too lazy to scour the glass cylinders with vinegar and water. The jays berate me. So too do the nuthatches, titmice, wrens, and finches. The mourning doves have stopped gathering on the ground to peck at fallen seeds because nothing has dropped for weeks. Be honest, months. This afternoon, a lone cardinal sits on a feeder's perch and glares at me as I peer through the kitchen window hiding behind a potted fern. He rolls an angry black eye and flies away. Each day, I look out at the feeders, then inside at the bone-dry plants, the stacks of unpaid bills, the ubiquitous dust, as inertia stiffens with the shellac of daily procrastination. All right, and this one's a little more on the lyric side again. I sort of go back and forth. It's called Possession. Through night mist and lush dew, the full moon rises, its face crisscrossed with black capillaries of forest branches. I walk, counting 6 moons in 6 ponds, each moon a lover held fast against the body of black water. Within the sweep of a willow's arm I sit, watching as the moon slowly shifts from the first pond's grasp, stealing away while water sleeps. Deer pass, as do minutes. My navy sweater dampens, holds lunar silver on its woolen hairs. An hour after midnight, by the last pond's mouth, a red fox drinks, tries to swallow moonlight. Ellen Martin, who was a student of mine when I taught an abstract painting class, she'll be aware of this. I often talk about figure-ground relationships in visual arts in terms of the sort of negative and positive spaces, yin-yang, whatever. And I wanted to try and take some of that illustrative concept and put it into writing. So this is a poem that's maybe a little trickier to understand. It's probably easier to read. It's called Either and Or. Let my hands cup air, or place a chrysanthemum, a sun-warmed stone, a fulsome word there. Hold the solid and the invisible with equal care. See the moon spooning with the sky as dark night makes room for the honey-colored moon. Carve distant blue ocean from the silhouette of a curving tan dune. Find stillness in the wind's breathless lee. Grant the breeze reprieve behind a sheltering tree. Value being duty-bound the same as being free. Listen for the sounds expressed on either side of silence. Let presence bless absence. Place no boundaries on your horizons. Respect the fence. Accept the glass, yet do not expect water. Become the field's hollow that slowly fills with snow. Cherish the sweet song of the whippoorwill and the harsh cry of the crow. Welcome arrivals, knowing they will soon depart, as tidal waters swallow land, yet always give it back. Celebrate the enduring and the ephemeral, the having and the lack. Unify two opposites to satisfy the complement. Choose either or. Accept the and antithesis. As Robert mentioned, I have a new story collection called Fog and Other Stories. And this poem actually was written prior to the concept of that. so I'm full of fog these days. This is a very quiet little poem. It's called Fog. Fog is the day's shroud. It teases greens from the tree's leaves and mutes the siren scream of reds. Fog soothes the itching edges and asks us all to disappear until we tire of being awake. Fog is weather's seductive amusement that settles over valleys like feathered caprices. Fog likes to lick streets and drip on windshields and mirrors, to frizz the dog's hair and dampen wool. Fog does not speak. It hums in a silver register only heard by stones. Fog is akin to coma. Someday we will all succumb to its vanishing.